Amsterdam. It was when I was lying naked in some marshy green grass, staring up at the bright gray Dutch sky, that I started to question my life choices. For all of my professional life, I had worked as a journalist. While living in Amsterdam, I was working for an English newspaper, which started going into financial freefall during the recent recession. I knew my days there were numbered, and that I should really look for a new job. Besides, like Allen Ginsberg, I'd always lamented the fact that I couldn't walk into a grocery store and buy something with my good looks. Then, I met a retired teacher named Ton, who sported wild white hair and gold-rimmed glasses. He belonged to a group of photographers and said they would be happy to pay me as much as I was making at the newspaper to model for them, so I jumped at the chance. All I had to do was take off my clothes and look pretty. On this particular grassy summer day, I had spent the afternoon modeling for Simon, a former school principal who usually liked to shoot nudes in gritty indoor settings. A compassionate, fascinating man whose English was impressive for someone his age, we'd originally bonded during a shoot at a small theater. The highlight for him that day was when he found a long, flat table in the dressing room and realized that if I lay on top of it, I looked like a cadaver on a mortuary table. As he snapped away, murmuring, "Oh, Liz, this is wonderful," I tried to cover my overbite with my lips and visualize myself becoming the page 3 girl for such publications as National Necrophiliacs and Dead or Undead. However, I still preferred Simon's penchant for cadaver shots over Tom's fascination with gas masks. During my first photo shoot with him, he had tied me up with thick ropes, sat me down on a lawn chair, and put a gas mask over me. Perhaps I should have been grateful, though. He also placed a scarf over my vagina to protect my modesty. Recently, all of Holland had been enjoying a brief spell of warm summer weather, and Simon and his wife had gone on a walk in the woods. Inspired by the natural setting, and keen to explore a new type of photography with me, he emailed to ask if I'd do an outdoor photo shoot with him. Desperate for the money, and always up for a photo shoot with Simon, I agreed, and a few days later, we went into the woods. Because there are so many people in Holland on so little land, over 16 million people crammed into 16,000 square miles. There's always someone around. Therefore, getting me naked without anyone seeing us was going to be a major issue. I emotionally prepared myself by finding a picnic table and eating my lunch. Simon, whose fear of flab prevented him from eating during the daytime, amused himself by taking pictures of me with one of my breasts hanging out of my strappy summer dress, a BLT in the opposite hand. After I finished eating, we found a big tree that I could pose around. I took off my panties from under my dress and leaned against the tree's thick, juicy bark as Simon prepared his camera. When it was ready, I quickly pulled off my dress and threw it towards a spot a few feet away from me, out of the shot, but close enough that I could grab it if some hiker suddenly appeared. After some poses by other trees, some vibrant with bushy green leaves, others tall, thin, and dying, we walked a bit further into the woods until we came upon a tree-lined trail. It was beautiful, and one of those natural sights that melts even the heart of a city girl like me. Pine needles had fallen on the ground, forming a crunchy brown carpet. The walkway eventually dipped out of view, and so it seemed as if it went on forever. Simon wanted to capture me running down the lane, so I pulled off my dress, took a deep breath, and ran down the hill. When I came back, Simon asked, "Will you do it again, this time kicking your heels?" I nodded, leaning over to catch my breath, and we took several more shots. The day would not be complete, of course, without a few dead Liz shots. As we walked back to the car, Simon saw some tree stumps, darkened by continuous moisture and covered with thick moss, which would be perfect for the job. I took off my dress and lay down, positioning my head so that the trees surrounded it like a halo. I thought about how nice my red hair would look against the green moss, and not about the questions that kept slithering into my consciousness. Does Simon do it with dead girls? Is he going to kill me and rape my corpse? Will my husband be able to figure out how to say missing person in Dutch so he can call the police? Afterwards, Simon was driving me home when we passed an idyllic field, complete with cows, and inspiration hit him once again. He glanced sideways at me from the driver's seat, trying to gauge my reaction before he asked, "Liz, would you agree to do a few more shots in that field?" I wanted to keep Simon happy. He hadn't paid me yet. So I smiled enthusiastically and said, "Yeah, that sounds like fun." We parked, traipsed towards the cows. Taking off my dress, I stood by a tree, trying to look sexy for the camera, while keeping an eye on the horned animals just beside me. Looking back, this was the moment when perhaps I should have called it a day. Then Simon saw some marshy grass, dotted with yellow and purple wildflowers. "Wouldn't I look beautiful," he asked, "with my red hair and white skin, lying amongst the lush green grass?" I started to have visions of myself as a lustrous lady of Shalott, so again I took off my dress and laid down. It was as I lay there, feeling totally vulnerable on so many levels, that I started to visualize insects crawling into my vagina. I didn't have health insurance, so I wouldn't be able to go to the hospital to get the bugs out. They would burrow inside me, multiplying, and then I would give birth to thousands of bugs, my vagina eaten away by the larvae. Then I remembered the sunscreen that I had applied that morning was no longer effective, and I started picturing my boobs and waxed labia frying up in the late afternoon sun. I'd go home to my husband and not be able to have sex because my breasts would have turned into 2 painful, overcooked eggs. It was at that moment, surrounded by the breathtaking natural beauty and Simon's overactive imagination, that I thought, perhaps I don't want to buy anything with my good looks. Thank you.